Okay, you're listening to the award-winning Philadelphia Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia, on Comcast Channel 66, and streaming live at phillycam.org. You can find us on Twitter at Hall Monitor WPPM, on our website www.hallmonitor.org, or on Facebook at PHM WPPM. Tonight on the program, we'll be joined by Councilmember Rue Landau. Lance Haver will provide a report on the Tax Reform Commission, and we'll share some interviews from our visit to the Juneteenth parade. Denise, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. We had a big day on Sunday
Mhm.
at the Juneteenth parade in West Philadelphia, 2 blocks from my house, which was good because my flip flop broke and I
Yes, we
had
had
to
a
walk
shoe
home and get shoes.
emergency.
We had
Yes.
a shoe emergency. All is okay now, though.
Mhm.
But we had a good time and we talked to a lot of people. It was a great event. Great event.
Yeah, for those of you who are watching tonight, today is Juneteenth. So happy Juneteenth if you observe it. And we went to the parade on Sunday because it's one of the biggest parades in the country. And among the guests that they had was the mayor of Baltimore was there and Jasmine Crockett. For those of you who watch C-SPAN on a regular basis or on Twitter checking out, clips from congressional hearings. Um, Rep. Jasmine Crockett is the representative from Texas that gave us the catchphrase of the summer, and I know I'm going to get it wrong. Bad body bleach bond something or other that she directed at U.S. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she even had a T-shirt on that had that in red, black, and green as part of her appearance in Philadelphia on Sunday. And it was just a really nice day. It wasn't as hot as it often gets, but it was hot enough. And we got to talk to some really nice people who were um, telling us about why Juneteenth is important and what people don't always get right about it.
Right. And so that's interesting. So we're going to have that a little later in the show. But before we get to that, we have an interview with Councilmember Rue Landau. It was a very busy council session. And Councilmember Landau had a lot of different pieces of legislation she put out. And here she is telling us a little bit about it. So here is our interview with Councilmember Rue Landau. All right, Councilmember Rue Landau, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
So it's been a pretty busy council session. What are some of the biggest things that you worked on this session?
I think the most impactful thing that I worked on was the Consumer Protection Bill. This was a bill that was created first by the administration. It was all written by the law department, but they tapped me based on my legal services background when I was a legal aid lawyer to introduce it. And it's this amazing piece of legislation that gives Philadelphia the tools that it needs to protect residents from lots of scams and, the bad actors out there that are trying to rip off, mostly our seniors, non-English speakers, certainly folks, low income people in the Black and brown community, there's folks out there that are trying to rip people off. And this bill gives the city the tools that it needs to go after these bad actors. Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to go in more detail right now.
I do, because if you look up consumer protection in a dictionary, the picture you see is Lance Haver. And Lance is our consumer reporter, and we've been very interested in this. So can you tell us a little bit more about it, and then how people can use the law if they feel like they've been scammed?
Absolutely. So Lance Haver's been doing this for a long time. That's good to see his, if we really did look him up and see his picture. Before now, there's been a state law that would protect people mostly the same way. But if the city as an entity wanted to take action against one of the bad actors, it would have to ask the Attorney General's office, the state Attorney General, or the city's DA's office in their civil division to file this lawsuit on behalf of the city. So you have to ask them, are they willing to do it? When do they have time to do it? Are they going to take up this issue? Now the city has the authority to just go for it itself. And that is the most, to me, the most important aspect, that the city gets to control its own lawsuits against its own bad actors without waiting for another entity to pick it up. This law, though, in Philly is not one where there's a right of private action where an individual could use it. You can in certain cases in the state law, but you cannot in the local law, and that's fine. This is for the city really to go after, you know, the scam artists like real estate companies that are stealing people's homes. There's absolutely lots of language in there that can help against the really bad landlords for any kind of deception or fraud. If you write up a lease with somebody and you're like, my place is in great condition, we know all the systems are working, everything's fine, and you move in and the plumbing doesn't work and there's holes in the roof and there's raw sewage coming up in your basement, you know, that might be something to go after. I know the law department is not fully equipped. They can't go after everything. They're going to go after the big bad actors that affect a lot of people. And that's the most important one. So one, giving the city the tools it needs to rid us of the bad actors is great. But what I'm really also hoping is that this law is a deterrent, that the bad guys will stop coming to Philly because we're going to keep suing them. And it's not nothing for the remedies, right? You can get injunctive relief. You can get the bad actors to stop what they're doing. You could fine them $2,000 per violation, and that could be a lot of things, including, you know, I haven't been able to use my apartment or something, or each person who lost their home or something like that. There's also other compensatory damages that can go directly to the people who were scammed. So everybody lost $1,000. You know, we have 1,000 people who each lost $1,000 to this bad guy. You can give them back. You can get them back the $1,000, and then there's other kinds of restitution. So, and the city can also recoup its funds from this as well. So I think, to me, this is a win-win. This is my greatest. This was what I think was the greatest moment of this whole session. Just giving the city the power and the tools that it needs to effectuate the change. Fantastic.
So if people feel like they've been scammed, what do they do? Do they?
So the problem, which I hope we have in the future, is we don't have a consumer protection office here in Philadelphia. I sure hope we do get one someday. And not so, you know, I've had conversations with the mayor even before we both started in January, and she's in line with this. She's very interested in ways in which we keep money in the pockets of moderate and low income Philadelphians, who are primarily the ones who are going to be scammed. So maybe she opens an office, but in the meantime, we did secure some money in the budget to buttress the law department for their consumer protection office. So right now, we're encouraging people, if they've faced a scam, to call our Office of Economic Opportunity, CEO, the city's Office of Economic Opportunity, probably build this out a little bit more. But as you know, a lot of people also go to the legal services agencies throughout the city, and they're going to figure out a way to streamline it. The city won't be able to take care of each individual case all the time, but it certainly will be watching when there's trends where to go after the big guys.
Okay. Equally important is the LGBTQ legislation that you put forward this session. A few bills and resolutions. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's that one felt really good, because as the first openly LGBTQ council person, it was really important to me that I made a mark this session. I think I did it already by certainly having an office that was so open and accessible to people in the community. I've had just really great feedback from my colleagues standing with me, standing beside me on so many of these issues. But these three resolutions that I put forth was one, just naming June Pride Month, which is great. And also throwing a couple of paragraphs in there, especially recognizing my friend and new colleague, Andre Carroll, who's going to be the third openly LGBTQ state representative in Harrisburg, and the second Black representative of the community out there in Harrisburg. And that's just wonderful. So threw a little love in there. But the other two, one is to really affirm that Philadelphia will be the safest place it possibly can be, regardless of what happens at the state and federal level. That, we know that there are lots of attacks happening against our communities nationwide. I think there's 515 bills already introduced or passed in the country in 2024 only, 4 of which were in Harrisburg. And this affects so many of members of our community, especially the Black and Brown members, especially the transgender, non-binary members, our youth. I did shout out also the addict youth in my other resolution, but this is to really create the space in Philadelphia that and to affirmatively say we're going to protect people to the best of our ability was important to me. And then the third resolution is to really kind of see the state of affairs for our community in the city. Again, Black and Brown, LGBTQ people are facing a much, much harder way in Philadelphia, especially transgender and non-binary people. I want to see what are the barriers in housing, employment, even things like our shelter system, even our prisons, unfortunately. What is going on? How can we find real equity and fairness in any of this? And also, when it comes to housing and employment, what are the barriers that we can reduce now? How do we do them? But we want to get kind of a state of affairs on how things are going for people. And looking at elders and especially looking at youth. The youth, to me, I think, the stat that 40% of homeless youth in Philadelphia identify in some way as LGBTQ+. And there's this gap. One thing I'm particularly interested in is aging out of foster care. There's this like black hole. Nobody knows what happens to these young people who don't have the support to take the next step. And I think if we start focusing on all of this a little bit more, finding out what's going wrong and seeing how we can fix it would be really, really helpful for the community.
Yeah, in 2024, we still have to deal with this. I don't understand.
Exactly.
How did your first budget as a council member go? What was that process like for you?
Interesting. It was even more fast. I'm a fast-paced person, but I was very surprised at the volume and the quickness of it. As a new person who we had so much to do. You had to figure out what the budget was, what the asks were last year, what people did or didn't do according to those asks. You needed to look at what the asks are this year, what they want to do with it, come up with a kind of a whole assessment of that, come up with questions. So very fast paced. And then you went through the process where you actually have humans in front of you and you get to ask these questions. Put in a couple of requests, then wanted to make sure that my voice was heard on some things that I think were very, very important. The number one of which for me was tenant financial assistance, the rental assistance. Wanted to, while we were working to make the eviction diversion program permanent, the only way it really, really works is when we have rental assistance associated with it. When tenants are falling behind, for the landlords to go through the eviction diversion program, it certainly is helpful when there's a pot of money where we can end up, paying some arrears for the tenant in order for there to be a guarantee that the tenant can stay for a little bit and try to catch up. So, I was rooting for that. That was my number one. We got 19 million on top of a 15 million that already exists, which is great, which is 4 million more than last year, I believe. I was helping, I wanted to really fight for a lot of housing things, right? The Built to Last program, which helps homeowners do holistic repairs to their houses. We usually had in the past this one funding stream. It might fix your heater or something else that might fix a roof. But this is, how do we fix, holistically look at your house and fix it from soup to nuts, so that it's not only healthy and working for you, but it's also that it's sustainable in the end. They try to make it as energy efficient as well. So we got some money for that. Was really shooting for making sure we had some money in West Philly to build the affordable housing that's needed. Little extra money, the Defender Association, you know, those guys, there's a constitutional mandate that we have people represented who are going through the criminal justice system. We have an incredible organization here, the Defender Association of Philadelphia, and they are doing their work with not enough money. I will continue to fight for them every year to see if we can continue to increase their budget, because they're asking for really, really logical things like more social workers.
Mhm.
Need that in their works. Not everything they're doing is, you know, somebody is going through a process. You can get them, you know, maybe you go through a very quick process of getting them, you know, found not guilty or a plea deal, whatever. You still want them to, they might be homeless. They might, you know, need support. They might need, you know, even help getting on public assistance so they have a little bit of money while they're working on the rest of this. Super important to give the Defender Association the tools they need. So that was kind of some of the stuff that I was working on in the budget. But the process itself, especially those last couple of weeks, whoo, it's a whirlwind.
All right, I'd like to bring you Denise Clay Murray here on Philadelphia Hall Monitor.
Hi, council member. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we talked a little bit about particularly the resolution where you want to have public hearings to find out where the LGBTQ community stands, particularly among Black and Brown members of the LGBT community. I started out covering HIV and AIDS in the Black community when I first started out as a reporter, and there's a lot of the same conversations that are still going on. What are you hoping that we can do differently as a city that we haven't tried before?
Well, thank you, first of all, for reminding me after talking about housing and other things. I didn't say health, which is clearly in the resolution, and it is actually one of the main pillars that we're going to be looking at. What are the gaps in healthcare, barriers to healthcare? You know, I think it was, there's a stat of about 75% of LGBTQ people feel like their healthcare is not asking them enough questions about, you know, their background, their lifestyle, and all sorts of things. I think there's still a lot to learn, and I do think, you know, we have some you know, federally certified health clinics here in Philadelphia. The Mazzoni Center and FIGHT, they're doing a great job, but we want to also make sure that mainstream health organizations are really handling issues really well. We all know it's no secret. One thing that wasn't funded in the budget was city-funded syringe exchange. And it's a really big deal. We've got an opioid crisis continuing. If anybody had a magic wand, it would be gone. We all know that. I wish I had a magic wand, but we do not. So you got to go through a process with this. There's been people who've been sadly addicted for so long, and it's going to take a while to get them through treatment and recovery successfully. But in the meantime, if we do not have a syringe exchange program of some sort and funded in some way, the rates of HIV and hepatitis are going to go up immediately. And they just are. We all know this. It happens in other cities. We need to make sure that this is funded. And, you know, we have to, that is one way in which we know that there will not be a continued spread. A large growing population of people who are using opioids are African-American males, and want to make sure that this is not another way that it's spreading. But, you know, overall, it's we have many, many more ways. When we go back to look at HIV, we have many, many ways, when we're not talking about opioids, of tackling the disease in different ways than we did before, right? There's more drugs, there's cocktails, there's PrEP, but still we know that there's, because of the way of our lags in our healthcare, we see this disproportionate harm to the Black and Brown community, especially the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay. Now, you're the chair of the technology committee for the city. And just as someone who uses city Wi-Fi during city council hearings, let's just say you got a lot of work to do.
Oh, yes, I do.
But I guess, what has that experience been? How did you, I guess, of all the committees you could have chosen to chair, why technology?
Well, let's start with, I love being the chair of technology, but the rookie freshmen do not choose. We get placed. So that is good. I could not be happier to be the chair of this committee. I think that digital equity is huge. And I think AI, artificial intelligence, is going to play this huge role in this other niche that I'm finding of consumer protection and making sure that we are protecting people from falling for dupes and scams. The city, I'm the only council person who has worked for the administration. I worked for two. We are woefully behind in technology. We're on the same Wi-Fi you are. In fact, I think it might be, we're all on the same public Wi-Fi potentially. And there is so much work to do to get us up to speed for where we should be. And that includes how we deliver city services and deliver it equitably, which I think is really important. So we have, welcome, Larry, your cat. We have so many departments, and I know this because I work there, has their own internal database, and they keep their own information, and they don't talk to each other. And if you want to collect data, you got to do some here, and you can do some there and some there. We have to find better ways of making sure that our systems are talking to each other, that we will not be able to tackle some of the big concerns we have unless we start really looking at data and looking at it holistically and digging down granularly. And to me, that is, we're way behind. This administration just started. One thing I love is they said, I talked about the Built to Last program that we funded. We have all these different ways in which you can apply to get some repairs done on your house, and some through this entity and some through that entity, whatever. The city has pledged you will have one place to go to say, my roof is leaking throughout my house. There might be mold, and you could put in what you have. You're a homeowner. This is your income, and up will pop the couple of places where you should probably apply, or maybe the one place where you should apply to get help. We need to do much, much, much more of that all over. I want to see, when we talk about equity, I want to see that you could actually sit there in your house or on your phone and find out, is your library really open right now? Does it, how about your rec center? You go, from the times when I've taken tours of pools, which I love doing, to go to many, many different pools in the city. Each one had a different set of rules. One was adult swim, one was family swim. What can you bring into the space? Why is that not first of all, let's have one set of rules if possible. And second of all, why is that not available to us on our phone so you don't have to show up to find out it's not family swim or it's not adult swim? That's the kind of stuff that that's the stuff that makes the city run really well. That's the stuff I love. There's other digital equity and access stuff I've also worked on. The federal government stopped funding internet access for low-income people this year. They just chose not to fund it. And we saw it coming up for expiration through February. I put in a resolution for it to try to push the feds to get it done, and they didn't. So we have about 130,000 city households that are struggling to pay with internet, if not lost internet, because of this. So we're still working. Council president has been helping me now to see what we can do to see if we can get some of our local leaders to help in a way to help fund PHL Connected, to get more people back on the internet and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fun one next term and the next few years, working on digital equity and access, and really, really pushing the city in ways they just haven't been pushed before, to really make the city highly functional on a level where you can access it from your phone or your computer. It's just got to happen. People are not showing up at the basement of MSB anymore to pay their bills, right? They're not calling, I think you might remember 686-1776. Let's figure out ways to make this as high functioning as possible for the city of Philadelphia, and make it efficient, but also make it equitable, because this really is about equity.
Now, speaking of equity and technology, you were among the folks sitting in on Councilman Harrity's hearing of the Labor and Civil Service Committee yesterday, where you had like everybody and their mom in council chambers. What the topic that everyone wanted to discuss was the mayor's decision to make make all city workers come back into the office, and get rid of, well, not necessarily get rid of, but end the prevalence of hybrid work. Is there anything council can actually do about that? Or was that a means to just make it so people felt heard? Because you have this negotiation cycle coming up where these unions are also looking at a new contract.
Yeah. So the hearing really was, Councilman Harrity's hearing was really to give people a venue and an opportunity to be heard. Part of the problem is that the decision came so quickly, and they gave a deadline of, the administration gave a deadline of July 15th. And a lot of people just thought this was not exactly the way you would negotiate something like this or communicate. So it was really a ripping the Band-Aid off that didn't feel very fair and made city employees very upset. So what he did is gave everybody a venue to actually talk about it publicly and to air concerns and to hear a little bit more of the administration side. We've been hearing they're going to given some concessions for some childcare, elder care. When is that money happening? Is it money? Is it a space where you're supposed to bring your kid? They don't know. And the deadline is, at least the first deadline was July 15th. That's a month away for people to make life decisions where they've already planned their summers out. So I think it was the way in which it happened with the city that made him realize that we needed to have this venue. It was one of the most spirited council sessions I've ever seen in my whole career. A lot of people very upset. And hopefully it will just really bring people to the table. I hope the administration really will negotiate this in good faith, really hearing from the people. The most important things that we have to know is that work has definitely changed since the pandemic, and people need flexibility. You know, the administration talked a lot about their already flexible work schedules. Hopefully there is a way that there can be some compromise where people can be as flexible as possible, sometimes at home, and maybe that's just, we'll call it flex. I don't care what we call it, you know, working from home, flex work, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that it's important in different phases of life that people have a lot of flexibility, because we have to be competitive, and we need our workforce to be happy, make all the changes that the rest of us want, you know, to happen.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, council member. And I'm going to give you back to Larry McGlynn, our co-host, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
Thanks, Denise.
All right. Thank you, Denise. And council member, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure. Can't wait to come back and talk to you again.
All right. Thank you so much.
The city has a unique tax structure. The reason for it is what's called the uniformity clause, which comes from Harrisburg, which doesn't allow us to do what most places do, and that is have different rates, tax rates for different buildings, for different incomes. So the city is trying to find ways of making the tax reasonable, fair, and lead to economic growth. Now, there are many ways to do it. And one of the things that was established was the Tax Review Commission to look at all the tax structures and to try and figure out how to go forward. Now, this is going to have a tremendous impact on homeowners because most of the power people in the city, meaning most of the chambers of commerce, want to lower the business taxes and the wage tax and raise the real estate taxes, which means people will be forced out of their home. There are other people who talk about other solutions, and what we're going to see is a short, brief response and some of what the chamber has to say in this upcoming review of the first hearing of the Tax Review Commission.
By the way, my name is Matthew Sid. I'm the co-chair of the Tax Reform Commission, joint chair by my fellow commission members. The commission is tasked with conducting an updated comprehensive analysis of all taxes imposed in Philadelphia, including by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and to make recommendations concerning tax reforms. The commission consists of 15 members. 4 members each are appointed by the Philadelphia Mayor Cheryl Harder, the council president. 1 member appointed by City Controller Kristen Brady, and the remaining members, 1 each, are selected by various local chambers of commerce in Philadelphia. We want to acknowledge.
Good morning, Commission members. My name is Stan Shapiro, and I'm here as Vice Chair of Philly Neighborhood Networks and a member of the Philly Revenue Project. I'd like to offer a brief review of the mandate that this Commission is charged with at Section 4-900A of the Home Rule Charter. I'm doing this not just as an observer, but as someone who was on the legal staff of City Council at the time that this was proposed to be adopted by the voters. So it's a long section, but for our purposes, the relevant portion reads as follows, quote, "The Commission shall analyze each tax to determine whether and to what extent the rate of the tax may be decreased in a, quote, fiscally and socially responsible manner." After calling for Commission recommendations that promote economic growth, the section goes on to say, quote, "The Commission's work shall also be guided by the principle of tax fairness and tax equity in apportioning tax burdens." Parsing this section makes clear that there are 4 separately stated tests that any recommendations of this Commission must pass. First,
William Carter, Vice President of Local Government Affairs with the Chamber of Commerce, founding member of the Inclusive Growth Coalition. We all came together for a reason. The reason is this, all businesses, regardless of demographics, we're saying the same thing, but we're all saying it in silos. Employers often cite the city's highest in the nation's wage tax and the double tax from the business income and receipts tax as major factors. As a point in fact, 80% of respondents to a joint survey performed by Philadelphia's first Chambers of Commerce indicated that reducing taxes on businesses is a primary action the city can take to help them stay, grow, and hire in Philadelphia.
My name is Jeff Devano. I'm an executive with Brandywine Realty Trust. Brandywine is a company founded by Jerry Sweeney and the largest owner of commercial real estate in both the city and Philadelphia, and the city of Philadelphia and surrounding suburbs for the last 2 decades. So, if the city wants to continue to see a decline in its population, workforce, and overall economic vitality, we would be our team wage tax unchanged. But if it wants to increase the number of people living, working, and growing in its borders, it must reduce or better yet eliminate the BRT and the wage tax.
My name is Thomas Young, and I'm the CEO of the World Trade Center in Greater Philadelphia. Reforming the burden wage tax is critical to attracting and retaining businesses in Philadelphia.
Jack Soloff. I am Senior Managing Director at South here in Philadelphia, which is a commercial industrial office brokerage firm. The city continues to struggle attracting and retaining companies because of the enormous additional tax burdens that companies have to absorb. These taxes include, as has been mentioned, BIRT, wage tax, and also the use and occupancy tax, which is really a tax that's unique here in Philadelphia as well.
Affairs of the General Building Contractors Association. GBCA represents nearly 350 commercial, industrial, institutional, general contractors, subcontractors, and material suppliers throughout the Greater Philadelphia region. We recommend a further reduction in the business income receipts tax as well as the city wage tax.
My name is William Bowie, and I am the owner of Empower Construction, a small yet growing enterprise located here in Philadelphia. In closing, reducing business taxes will create a more supportive environment for existing businesses and attract new ventures to Philadelphia.
Good morning, buenos dias, distinguished members of the Philadelphia Tax Reform Commission. I am Jennifer Rodriguez, President and CEO of the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am here to advocate for a significant and consistent reduction in business taxes, with particular emphasis on the business income and receipts tax. The VERT tax is arguably the most burdensome for small businesses in Philadelphia, and it stands as a substantial barrier to economic growth and prosperity within our city. Philadelphia's high cost of doing business is well documented, and it is a significant deterrent for small business owners and entrepreneurs. Even though many small businesses are exempted from VERT of the first $100 in receipts.
My name is Virginia Harrison, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. I am here in support of the reduction of the business income and receipts tax to support equitable economic growth in Philadelphia. Philadelphia has one of the highest business tax burdens in the country, with both gross receipts and net income taxes. This double taxation places a significant strain on Black and brown businesses, exacerbating existing disparities in access to capital. Studies of...
My name is Jason Wright. I'm the founder and president of Zenith Wealth Partners, which is a local minority-owned investment advisory firm. I'm here to talk about the pressing need for business tax reform, specifically reducing or eliminating the business income and receipts tax for small businesses commonly known as VERT.
My name is Thomas Ginsberg. I represent the Pew Charitable Trust. Pew has done research on Philadelphia public finance and tax policy for more than 15 years. We have two recent pieces of research that are is that the city's tax exemptions, exclusions, have had a big, almost decisive impact on the tax burden.
Of the Commission, my name is Jonathan Sgro. I'm a Divisional Supervising Attorney at Community Legal Services. I'm here to emphasize that any recommendation of this Commission should be judged by how it impacts low-income and working-class residents of Philadelphia. Philadelphia has an unusually high rate of home ownership, especially among Black, Hispanic, and low-income households. Many of these homes have been in families for generations. Some believe that property taxes are a more reliable source of revenue because real estate doesn't move. But families and longtime homeowners do move when they can no longer afford their bills. While this Commission is exploring ways to generate new revenue, it must work equally hard to ensure that no Philadelphia homeowner is faced with the loss of their home because their income is outpaced by rising assessments.
My name is Andy Tway, and I'm here today as a concerned and engaged citizen. My goal today is to get the often misunderstood land value tax, or LVT, into the discussion as a true reform. Some of us call it a quote-unquote smart tax for smart growth. If we were to begin moving towards a higher tax on land versus improvements, I believe we would move the needle on incentivizing development, penalize blight and speculation, help to create more housing and affordable housing.
My name is Reverend Gregory Olson, and I am the representative of NAACP on the Tax Advisory Committee. Promised an opportunity to really look deeply at how race has created the communities we live in. We look at North Philadelphia, we look at Kensington, we look at West Philadelphia, and we recognize in 1937, a redlining map was created. They cut off investment in those communities. And for 100 years almost, those communities have been disinvested in. And we talked about what we're going to do about that differently now. How we're going to address it. If we're serious about racial reckoning, how are we going to address something that has created the poverty that we see? poverty we just mentioned. The numbers of 45% of poverty rate for our Latino community, 38% poverty rate for parts of our African American community, that has been systemic for the last 60 years. Tax cuts and race have a horrible history in this nation. People have used tax cuts as a metaphor for how do I hurt black people. But you're creating jobs for who? Are you creating jobs for the people that live in North Philadelphia now? Are these jobs the kind of jobs you need such an education level that they can never apply for? If we're talking about tax cuts, how does it change the life of those living in North Philadelphia right now? So I asked you that question then, and I want to be really a part of the dialogue. I want to really hear and learn from you, how do we address that fundamental question? How do we make a difference in their lives? So many of the other cities, it is all about displacement. They're changing jobs. They're creating new jobs for other people who move into those cities, and they push other people, poor black people, out of those cities. What about those poor blacks that live there now?
I'm the executive director of the Pennsylvania Policy Center. There's really a temptation to come to a commission like this one with a series of conclusions. Temptation most people who've spoken today have already fallen into. There's even a stronger temptation to say, cut my taxes and the equivalent of manna will fall from the heavens. That's a very strong temptation at a hearing like this. I'm going to resist these temptations. Instead, I want to raise a series of questions about the goals of the commission and the economic life of Philadelphia and the potential impact of various policies on our city. In doing so, I'm going to challenge some conventional ideas and urge the Commission to examine them in depth. I very much hope that this Commission can be a focal point for the serious examination of all these issues. So what I really want to do today is encourage the Tax Commission to have an open mind about every single one of these issues. I want to encourage you to look at the evidence. I want to encourage you to look at the academic studies. Look at the studies done in Philadelphia. Seek the best evidence you can and evaluate it, and then come to a conclusion. Finally, I hope the Commission will spend some time considering other paths to equitable economic development besides changes to the tax code. Sometimes we talk about taxes, and for 20 years we've been talking about economic development. We've been primarily talking about taxes because we don't really have any other ideas. But our cities have had success in creating economic growth, in creating job growth, and especially in reducing poverty by other strategies, including improving K-12 education, which I hope our state legislature may take a giant step towards by the end of this month, by expanding access to higher education, by adopting targeted workforce development policies that help both businesses and workers and communities, and by embracing commercial corridor strategies.
My name is Greg Walton. This is in part because of the state's uniformity clause, but is also exacerbated by our local tax structure that disproportionately taxes the poor. There is 2% sales tax and soda tax, helps the rich through tax abatements, and leaves the city's budget underfunded. In short, Philly is so poor in part because of its regressive tax structure. Reaganomics promised trickle-down prosperity from tax cuts on the rich, but we all know how that turned out. Instead, the rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and public services were slashed. While Democrats love to hate on Republicans at the federal level.
Lance, thank you so much for that report. And now, Denise, we're going to talk a little bit about and show people our visit to the Juneteenth parade. What do people need to know?
Well, like I said, today is Juneteenth. And what Juneteenth is the day that the last group of enslaved Americans in Texas found out that the North had won the Civil War and they were now free. It was, I believe, 3 years after the end of the Civil War that they found this out, but Juneteenth celebrates the day that they found this out. And around the country, because Juneteenth was declared a federal holiday a couple of years back. Around the country, there are celebrations of Juneteenth where you have parades and barbecues and stuff. Prior to Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, the only place that really celebrated it was Texas, and for good reason, because Texas was where these enslaved Americans were when they found out that they were no longer slaves. So, so they've been having the Juneteenth celebration in Malcolm X Park in West Philadelphia for a while now, but it's only really picked up steam in terms of a major event over the last few years. Now, we could get into the fact that for a while there, you had dueling Juneteenth celebrations, one at Clifton House in Germantown, in addition to the one in Malcolm X Park. And we could even get into the fact that today, Juneteenth, is the beginning of Welcome America, which everybody in Philadelphia knows is the beginning of the celebration of July 4th. And I asked someone that on Twitter, why is it that, does anybody else see the irony in the day that the last group of slaves were freed being the start of Welcome America? And from what my sources are telling me, that's intentional, because people in the city were tired of that not being recognized as a part of American history and as a part of the Welcome America celebration. So since Juneteenth precedes July 4th, they decided, okay, we're going to have a Juneteenth event, so that way everybody kind of remembers that America wasn't necessarily founded in the nice, clean, antiseptic way that people would like us to believe.
Right, absolutely. So here is our visit to the Juneteenth parade.
1961. We're so excited. Right here, we've seen some stuff. We've been through some stuff. Leadership Academy. Brother Manuel, we want to give a big shout out to Global Leadership Academy. Give it up for Leadership Academy 60 babies. The GLA drill team. They are coming down and say hello to you. Happy Juneteenth. Happy Father's Day from CLA. Global is a partner. It's 2024 and she's still a bad Amazon. She's still a bad Amazon. We got a parade, y'all. Here they come. On our first up, we have Global Leadership Academy. CLA is a partner of the Pennsylvania Juneteenth Initiative. The CEO is Naomi Jackson, the Queen. Naomi is building Global Leadership Academy with Global providing a job education program to the global studies and leadership in efforts to develop future leaders of the world. The CEO and principal of Global Southwest is Miss Tamika Evans. And the Chief Operations Mr. Ray Joy. Happy Juneteenth. We also have the Prince Juneteenth Pageant Scholarship winners. We have 2024 winners. Frankie Knight, Little Miss Juneteenth, Milan Ellis, Junior Miss Juneteenth PA, Mariah White, Miss Juneteenth PA. She did an amazing job the other night. Thank you so much, Queen. We also want to say big love and welcome to Juneteenth, Pennsylvania Queen, the inaugural, Malaya Simmons. We love you.
I guess my first question for you is, what brought you out here today?
Because it's a celebration of our community, and we just wanted to be a part of it in some kind of way. Even if it's just to walk around, we just wanted to be a part of the community.
Now, what do you think people need to know about Juneteenth? Because a lot of times when you ask people about Juneteenth, you get some really interesting answers. What do you think that people should know about Juneteenth?
They should know that because we've lost our history, our Black history, and it's sort of like a regaining of who we are. If I could leave my children anything, I would leave them to know who they are, because that's important. When I work at a library, and I wanted to know why people were so successful after in the Harlem Renaissance. And I got this children's book, and the first thing he said in the introduction is that they knew who they were. That's why they were so successful. And so that if anything, I would want to give my children a knowledge of who they were, their history, what kind of strength they came from. And so this is the beginning of us recognizing that that we've come a long way. That's what Juneteenth means to me.
Okay, can you get your name and what section of the city you're from?
I'm from Southwest.
Okay, but what's your name?
Benita.
Okay.
Riggins.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, what brought you out here today?
The celebration is part of my culture. You know, I need to learn all I can, you know, because I've been denied for so many years. So, you know, I'm happy to be out here with my people celebrating one of the biggest holidays for us, African American people.
So, what do you think people should know about Juneteenth? Because a lot of times when you mention Juneteenth, you get different kinds of answers as to what it is and what it means. What do you think people should know?
People should know about me. They should understand that I'm a person who likes celebrating, learning about my culture, trying to pass it on so it could be recognized until the end of time.
Well, can we get your name and what section of the city you're from?
My name is Reba Murray, and I live in West Philly.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Sherwood, and I live in South Philadelphia.
Well, can you talk a little about We Dream in Black?
We Dream in Black. This is an organization primarily focusing on domestic workers. And we're here to help domestic workers know about their rights, their protections, because sometimes as a domestic worker, you get a job and, you know, you rely at the mercy of your employer. And you just figure what they want, you say yes to, without knowing exactly what you can say no to and what you can say yes to. So this group helps you to understand your hours, your protections, and everything that you need. So this is why I like it. And myself being a nanny, and I got introduced to the group, and I love it.
Okay. So what brought you out here today?
What brought me out here today? That woman there brought me out here today, Abby. Adriana, we're getting interviewed about us, We Dream in Black. So she's the one who got me into this group, and I was telling her she wanted to know more about our group.
Okay, so We Dream in Black is an initiative of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And so the National Domestic Workers Alliance is the leading organization in the US and the only one in Philadelphia that is organizing domestic workers to fight for their rights, dignity, and respect in this workforce. We consist of 5 different chapters: Atlanta, New York, North Carolina, Houston. Thank you for that. And so We Dream in Black is a Black initiative within the National Domestic Workers Alliance, where it's a safe affinity space for us to share our experiences We are also a multilingual and multiracial organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're doing a story on what brought people out here to the Juneteenth parade. Why do you? I guess. What does Juneteenth mean to you?
Juneteenth means freedom, right? It means freedom fought and we won. It's our right to celebrate this day because of what our ancestors would have gone through the years. And finally, we are aware of that it was the official day of slavery, emancipation of slavery, regardless of how long people would have been emancipated. They were the last set of people. So basically we came out here because we wanted to interact with our community and get the visibility that our organization deserves. Our work is also like one of the oldest slave jobs up to today, and we still are fighting for the rights and the dignity and respect that we deserve in this workforce. We know that during the pandemic, our job was deemed only then as essential work. We always know that about ourselves, and so this is why we are organizing, to bring that now out to the community so that they can give us that respect that we deserve.
Now,
we're giving it a voice.
Yes.
Now, as people who are not from the United States,
yes,
what did you know about Juneteenth before you came here? What had you been taught about it?
I would say for me personally, because I was born in Barbados, we just celebrated who we are on the island. We celebrated our culture. And so when I came here, I didn't feel like how we celebrated our culture, it was not the magnitude that is here. And so I got here and I realized Juneteenth embraces that. It brings all of us together. Yes.
All black together.
The entire diaspora.
The entire diaspora. Regardless of where you're from, because I'm from the Caribbean as well, which is St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so again, I came here and this is the work that I'm doing. I'm a domestic worker. And so it's only when you get into this workforce, you realize that there is a stigma attached to it. Right?
And a lot of people are also afraid of not knowing what to say or knowing what to do. So someone could say to you, hey, you have to work 60 hours, and you're thinking, well, that's a lie. So, well, you can decide, well, you can say no. You can have a voice. You can say, well, I don't want to do that, or I shouldn't be doing that, or that's not right. And their laws are being passed now in Philadelphia to protect domestic workers.
We passed what we call the Bill of Rights, and that is the right to privacy. If you're a living nanny, you have the right to privacy regardless of it being in the person home. The cameras should not extend beyond the bathrooms or the personal living space. We have the right to a contract. If you're working with an employer for more than 5 hours, you have the right to a written contract in your language. So if your first language is Spanish, that contract should be written in Spanish. The right to advance notice of termination, the right to discrimination, and anti-retaliation. What we're currently working on, and when I said we, I mean the National Domestic Workers Alliance, is what we call the anti-retaliation to support our Bill of Rights that has been passed, because we passed the Bill of Rights. It becomes the law in 2020, but in despite of the passage of the Bill of Rights, what we are still seeing, based on a survey that was carried out, is that workers are still, their rights are still being violated. So right now in the fall, we are going to be launching the anti-retaliation legislation to expand support and protection for workers within our workforce.
Can we get your name? Because we got yours.
My name is Adriana George.
Okay. And what section of the city are you from?
So I worked in the Rittenhouse Graduate Hospital area. Mitch is in Grace Ferry
yes.
area. So it's in that area.
And she got me into this. She goes, come here.
Okay. All right.
We want you.
Well, thank you so much.
Denise, thank you so much for that report. We'd also like to thank Lance Haver for discussing the Tax Reform Commission with us, and Councilmember Rue Landau for joining us on the show tonight. We'll be back next week with